Tropical Storm Rafael is gaining momentum as it makes its way toward Cuba, with forecasters warning that it may reach hurricane strength by the time it makes landfall on Wednesday. As the latest tropical system in an already active hurricane season, Rafael poses a significant threat to the region, with meteorologists closely tracking its path, potential intensification, and expected impacts on local communities. Rapid intensification expected. Meteorologists have been monitoring Tropical Storm Rafael's rapid strengthening, which is unusual for storms this late in the season. The warm waters of the Caribbean Sea are currently creating ideal conditions for Rafael to intensify. According to the National Hurricane Center, NHC, Rafael could reach sustained wind speeds of over 74 miles per hour, officially qualifying as a Category 1 hurricane by the time it approaches Cuba's shores. The storm's current track projects landfall in central Cuba, but small deviations could alter which areas will experience the brunt of its power. As of Tuesday morning, Rafael's winds were clocked at around 65 miles per hour, with meteorologists expecting these to increase as the storm continues moving over warm Caribbean waters. Rafael's pressure has been dropping, a classic sign of storm strengthening, and the NHC has issued warnings of high winds, heavy rain, and storm surges for parts of central and western Cuba. Authorities have advised residents to prepare for strong winds, potential flooding, and power outages, urging communities to secure properties and make any necessary evacuations if ordered. Potential impacts on Cuba. For Cuba, the timing of Rafael's projected landfall poses significant challenges, as the nation is still recovering from previous tropical storms and the ongoing demands of the hurricane season. Flooding remains one of the primary concerns, as heavy rainfall could lead to flash floods and mudslides, especially in mountainous and low-lying areas. Cuban authorities have issued storm advisories across provinces expected to be affected and are working with local officials to prepare shelters for those who may need to evacuate. While Rafael's exact path remains uncertain, residents in the storm's projected path have been urged to take all necessary precautions, stock up on supplies, and prepare for power outages and limited access to resources in the coming days. In addition to winds, Rafael's potential storm surges could be devastating. Coastal areas along the southern shore of Cuba are at risk of experiencing surges that could bring significant flooding, particularly during high tide. Forecasters have noted that the strength of the surge will depend on Rafael's intensity at landfall, with higher surges expected if the storm reaches hurricane status. Concerns beyond Cuba. Tropical Storm Rafael's projected path doesn't end in Cuba. After crossing the island, Rafael is expected to move into the Gulf of Mexico, where warm waters could lead to further intensification. Forecasters are watching for possible impacts on the southeastern United States, particularly in Florida and the Gulf Coast, though the exact path remains uncertain. Should Rafael enter the Gulf of Mexico as a hurricane, it could become a threat to coastal areas from Texas to Florida. The NHC is already coordinating with emergency services and local governments in the U.S. Gulf Coast to monitor the storm's progress and prepare for possible impacts. Although it's too early to predict Rafael's exact trajectory after Cuba, authorities are urging those along the Gulf Coast to remain vigilant and informed as the storm develops. Preparations underway in Cuba and surrounding regions. In anticipation of Rafael's approach, local and national emergency services in Cuba have been activated. Preparations include securing infrastructure, reinforcing coastal areas, and distributing emergency supplies to vulnerable communities. Additionally, schools and businesses in the affected regions may be closed as a safety measure, and local authorities have set up temporary shelters for those in need of evacuation. The Cuban government has stressed the importance of preparedness, urging residents to take heed of all warnings and to follow evacuation orders if issued. Rafael's arrival could also affect Cuba's agricultural regions, potentially impacting the nation's food supply chain. Farmers have been advised to protect their crops and livestock, with assistance provided for relocating animals to higher ground when possible. As Rafael moves closer, airlines have already started to cancel flights to and from regions expected to be affected by the storm, and ports along the Cuban coast are making necessary preparations. Neighboring Caribbean nations are also monitoring the situation, with some issuing advisories in case Rafael shifts westward. Rafael's rapid intensification has reignited discussions among meteorologists and climate experts regarding the impact of climate change on tropical storms and hurricanes. Warmer ocean temperatures, a factor directly tied to climate change, are thought to contribute to the increasing frequency and strength of late-season storms like Rafael. Meteorologists point to this pattern as a sign that hurricane seasons may extend further into the calendar year, with storms retaining high intensities even late in the season. With the ongoing impact of these late-season storms, experts are advocating for more resources dedicated to disaster preparedness and adaptation efforts. Every degree of warming in our oceans creates conditions for stronger, more unpredictable storms, said a meteorologist at the NHC. Communities, particularly those in hurricane-prone regions, will need to continue investing in preparation and recovery resources to adapt to these changes. The road ahead. As Tropical Storm Rafael nears Cuba, all eyes are on its development, with forecasters providing regular updates on its path and intensity. Cuban authorities are working tirelessly to prepare communities, and residents are being urged to take all necessary precautions to protect themselves and their families. Whether Rafael will maintain hurricane strength as it moves toward the Gulf of Mexico remains uncertain, but with its potential to impact the southeastern U.S., the storm serves as a reminder of the ever-present threat posed by tropical systems in this region. For now, the immediate priority is ensuring the safety and preparedness of Cuban communities in the storm's path. The coming days will be crucial, and both Cuban and U.S. officials are closely monitoring the situation, prepared to respond as necessary. As Rafael continues to evolve, communities along the Gulf Coast are reminded to stay alert, follow local advisories, and be prepared for a storm season that remains far from over.